You're listening to Mornings on Sydney's 2GB, thanks to your local pub. The perfect place to celebrate the wins and join in on the banter this footy season.
A lot of feedback coming through for obvious reasons, and thank you to all those people taking the time to share their stories. We'll certainly be passing them on to the Minister, but look, all we can do is take him on his word, and he sounded to me just as horrified as everybody else. And given that he now has a friend, and he's revealed this morning that he has a friend who's involved in all of this, their daughters, you would think that not only is he professionally copping grief over this, he is privately being spoken to by those parents of victims in the childcare system. 131873 is the number. Now, Chiang Lim is the CEO of the Australian Childcare Alliance in New South Wales. He was listening to what Jason Clare had to say. He wanted to have his say this morning. Good morning, Chiang.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you, mate. First and foremost, thank you for the work you're doing in this space. What did you want to add to this important discussion we're having this morning?
Well, what the Minister has said, and we really appreciate what he's proposing and what he's going to do, but there's a massive elephant in the room, and that is, if you look at, for example, the Victorian example, the 20 services that animal was at, all of them were either rated meeting or exceeding in terms of the overall quality, but also in their what we call quality area 2, which is children's health and safety. Now, if you have such kinds of public ratings, and yet you tell your parents everything's good, the parents will have, therefore, a false confidence. Now, I'm not saying that all the ratings are bad. All I'm saying is this is not an isolated incident. We've known we've got a problem for many, many, many years, and yet it is so frustrating. It makes your blood boil that the system hasn't been fixed. We have, as you know, and when you first became the morning show presenter, I sent you all my data with regards to that other animal in Queensland. Now, maybe he rot in jail. However, in New South Wales, he was also charged 300, almost 300 charges. But has he been extradited to New South Wales to stand trial? No. And not only that, Australia's worst pedophile. Come on, you're telling me he worked alone? There's no other persons who were involved? Where were the others that either either turned a blind eye and were not prosecuted? Where are they?
Well, that's the thing, Chiang, right? And when it comes to Ashley Paul Griffith, which who we can speak freely about because he's pleaded guilty to those offences, he was allowed to offend in childcare centres for 2 decades. Are you honestly telling me, and can the authorities honestly say that there was never one person in those 20 years who raised concerns about this bloke, that maybe, there's just something about him, and no one thought to look into his past and where he'd worked before?
Correct, exactly right. And so we're fixated by, obviously, understandably, we're fixated by the one that actually caused the worst harm, but they could not have done it alone. So where are we as government and the community and all that? Where are we holding the rest of everybody else responsible? And can I say, let me be blunt. What about the government? In New South Wales, as you well know, the last 5 years, we have record upon record, national record of breaches and non-compliances for 5 consecutive years. And yet, our ratings are 92% meeting, if not exceeding, or excellent quality ratings. That doesn't make any sense. That means it's 325% chance. This is from the Productivity Commission themselves. In New South Wales, there's 325% chance of getting a breach.
Yep.
Yet we can't identify. We've got large intelligence database in the Department of Education, and we can't identify where the problems are.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, the other statistics, and I hate to refer to it as a statistic, but that's what it is, that sort of just floored me, was one that came up in the Four Corners report on the ABC. Each year, more than 3,000, not kids, 3,000 babies and toddlers are sent to hospital with injuries sustained in childcare. 3,000, Chang?
That's ridiculous, isn't it? That's unacceptable, not beyond unacceptable. And the worst part of it all is, and I've said this to governments, I've said this to politicians, I've said this to bureaucrats, they have already forget the new laws that they are all talking about, they've got 9 existing powers now to either suspend the service or shut them down. Why haven't they used them? Why?
Yep. And look,
that's the big question.
And you're so right, Chang. I mean, I was highlighting what was going on at a childcare centre in Sydney's West, and I had the Education Minister come onto the program, Prue Carr, and I know she's off work at the moment. She's got her own health issues. But, you know, I had to sit here and rant and rave and bang the desk saying, Minister, why aren't you doing anything about it? Eventually, they decided to shut it down for 3 months. We shouldn't be warning these childcare centres that we're going to send in a regulator to inspect them. We should just be turning up, knocking on the door and saying, right, what's going on in here? Where's all your children working with children checks? We need to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure everyone's doing the right thing and not the wrong thing.
But we already do that. And that's the wonderful thing about in New South Wales. We have the highest percentage of visits by authorised officers to these services. That part I don't have a problem with.
But Chang, my problem with it is they're giving them a week's notice to get everything in order before they turn up and do those inspections. Why aren't they just turning up unannounced?
They do. That, in their defense, they do. That's not the problem. The problem is, what do you do after that? That's the thing. Why haven't they used the existing powers to do something about this? So this is the problem that it's all well and good to come up with new laws and strengthening the powers and all sorts of things. It's no point having new laws if you don't use it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a mere suggestion. And as a result, those criminals out there will just know that it's fake, and they'll just get away with it again and again.
Yeah. Good on you, Chang. Good on you for calling through, mate. And thanks again for what you're doing in this space. That's Chiang Lim. He's the CEO of the Australian Childcare Alliance in New South Wales. And they've been working to get stronger regulations and rules when it comes to childcare workers, but it just hasn't been followed through by government. Well, what we need to do is organise somehow to get Chang in front of the relevant ministers, both at a state level and at a federal level, because they're the people we need to be speaking to and listening to, those who are on the front line, not these bureaucrats, people that understand what needs to change and what needs to be fixed. It's 9 minutes away from 10.